While everyone has been distracted by the Bitcoin games, new competing protocols are being released into the world of Ethereum. Microsoft is going cuckoo for Ethereum with their new open-sourced yet centralized protocol Coco, while separately Vitalik-s and Joseph Poon have released a working draft of their project Plasma. So why is a $561 billion US company releasing an Ethereum-based protocol? And why would they make this protocol both open source and centralized? Will it make anyone feel better if we call these subchains instead of side chains? And there's a lot to go over with competing protocols that are competing for the future development of Ethereum. Let's discuss. Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, and together, welcome to Minting Coins. So we've been talking about Bitcoin a lot in this show. There's just been a lot happening between the SegWit activation, the Bitcoin Cash situation, and with the price fluctuation. But in this whole time, people have been really wondering, where's Ethereum? What's happening to Ethereum? You know, when Ethereum's price skyrocketed to $400 and then back down to $200, well, that was when the Bitcoin price was just around that $3,000 mark. But now that the Bitcoin is even at the $300, or now that Ethereum is at the $300 price now, it's still in comparison to a $4,100 Bitcoin price, and it's just not at the levels of which it was. So a lot of people really haven't been paying attention to Ethereum, or have been wondering, why hasn't Ethereum seen the same attention that Bitcoin has seen? And, you know, frankly, it's been because there's just things happening with Bitcoin, and the things that are happening with Ethereum are just not visible right now, because the developers of Ethereum, the people working behind Ethereum, are very busy at making Ethereum better. Not just Ethereum directly, but even a lot of the other protocols and systems and smart contracts that are based on Ethereum. Those developers are working on making those systems better as well. And what we have coming out of the news this week and coming out of the news today is that we have a couple major projects, a couple major forces in the world of technology and in blockchain technology who are releasing these protocols to coincide with Ethereum, to connect to Ethereum, to work with Ethereum, to be blockchains that are subchains of the Ethereum blockchain within the universe of Ethereum. And you know, some might call them side chains, some might call them subchains, but these are essentially protocols, systems of code that allow people, organizations, corporations to, you know, create these side chains or these subchains which connect directly to the main Ethereum blockchain. So we have the main Ethereum blockchain, and then beneath that we're going to have all these different side chains. The same thing is, you know, what we're expecting to see with Bitcoin and with segregated witness and with the Lightning Network. We have the main Bitcoin network, and then beneath that we're going to have these different side chains where, you know, the transactions, you know, Bitcoin is going to come into these side chains. The transactions will hash out inside those networks with slightly differentiated rules, and then we'll get brought back into the main chain when everything wants to get added to the, you know, the top line official ledger. And this is exactly now what we're seeing with Ethereum. The difference, though, you know, I think that right now with Ethereum, the system of Ethereum is pretty well defined. It's pretty well structured, where there's the one Ethereum. There's Ethereum Classic, but where the main development is, where Vitalik is focusing on, where a lot of these major corporations and the major Ethereum, which is the #2 cryptocurrency in the world, there's just that Ethereum right now. And so that's like the top line, top level blockchain in this particular ecosystem. there are now these secondary level protocols, these sub protocols that are going to be the next layer of ledger on these blockchains. And these different protocols are essentially going to be competing with each other. And there's going to be essentially a network effect to the network effect of which protocol is going to gain dominance inside the ecosystem, is going to be a major force to deal with for years and years, and potentially what the majority of the world will just move into forever. And so there's a lot riding on which of these get ultimately used and which of these ultimately gets mass adopted, right? So just as a quick, maybe this might make sense as like an analogy, but how many of you out there have experience building a website? How many of you out there have experience maybe using WordPress? Maybe you know code, maybe you don't know code, but maybe you have experience using WordPress. Now, what other content management system do you have experience with? There's other ones out there, right? There's Drupal, and there's Kentico, and there's just all of these other different open source and closed source content management systems. But chances are you are very, very aware of WordPress, because WordPress was the content management system that got built and developed on the internet. There were other content management systems around the same time that were getting created and built and developed and evangelized by different users and adopters. But ultimately, the majority of the world is really focused on WordPress. That is the one that has really gained the mass adoption. And it's not a perfect analogy, but yeah, it's really interesting. So let's go over, let's stop talking about this. Let's take a quick peek and just see where we're at in the market. And then we will dive deeper into this talk about Plasma, this talk about Coco, and let's discuss. Okay, so starting over here very quickly, over at coinmarketcap.com, we have our overall market capitalization at $137 billion, and 24-hour volume is up $6.2 billion. Bitcoin dominance still over the 50% mark at 50.4%. Down here we see Bitcoin up a little bit from where it fell last night at almost $4,200 at 41.86, and a lot of volume, even though that volume has gone down almost 5% in the past 24 hours. It is $3 billion compared to Ethereum's $1 trillion. So we have a delta of about $2 trillion. There are a lot more Ethereum trading today than there was yesterday, probably because so much Bitcoin going into the market, increasing in price, people taking those profits and probably converting them to Ethereum, because now Ethereum is relatively undervalued, especially compared to where Ethereum was relative to where the Bitcoin price was. So when the Bitcoin price was reaching new highs around that $3,000 and the Ethereum price was at $400, well, in terms of the Bitcoin, the Ethereum price that's when it was at 0.11 BTC. And so being here at 0.07 BTC, we were just super underperforming in Ethereum where we were. And a lot of people think that this has a huge potential to 2x or even 4x, especially as we see a lot of the news that's coming out with the development of Ethereum directly and the development of these secondary and tertiary layers that are going to be facilitating the transactions, the security, and the adoption by both users and corporations inside all across the world. Okay, so where'd this go? Yeah, so this is real fun. I just wanted to share this real quick in the best of. So in 2015, this Redditor puts a $10 Bitcoin paper wallet into his home's wall, and he's leaving it for someone in the future to find. And hopefully they'll be worth something, the person says. Redditors chip in an extra $40 into the wallet. Today, the wallet now contains $895 worth in Bitcoin. So, wow, how cool is that? That they took $10, maybe $50 in Bitcoin, and put it in a paper wallet and just put it in the wall. What sort of awesome treasure hunt, just secret find is that going to be for somebody, 10 years or, longer? I mean, that could be a crazy amount of money. If Bitcoin was $1 million, if we take that, was $895, we pop 3 zeros on there, Bitcoin was 4 million, then that would be $895,000, right? So, so if Bitcoin was $1 million, this $895 of current Bitcoin money would be worth about $1 million. So that's pretty significant for a long-term find. A measly $10 or $15 short term, but long term, wow, that's going to be amazing for somebody. Okay, so turning into the first article in today's news, popping over to take a look at Plasma. So this is talking about Plasma being released by Vitalik and Joseph Poon, releasing a working draft of the Plasma project. And so Vitalik tweeted out, just to clarify, this is an independent and strongly complementary to the base layer proof of stake and sharding. And so he's just saying that this Plasma product is going to work hand in hand, perfectly in sync with Ethereum and with the other initiatives that it's moving forward with. So there's a Lightning Network implementation still not ready for production yet in Ethereum, and that's called Raiden. And so that's Raiden Network. I think it's Raiden.network. And so Raiden.network is similar but different. And so the basic idea is to switch from a model where all transactions hit the shared ledger, the same Ethereum blockchain, and then switch them over to a model where users can privately exchange messages and sign the transfer of value over. And so right now the bottleneck is everyone wants to use Ethereum. When there's one of these ICOs, when everyone wants to use Ethereum at the same moment, at the same time, then it's very, very difficult. The gas prices go way, way up. People get confused. Transactions just float around there. People aren't sure if the transaction is going to go through or if it's going to get kicked back or if it's going to happen twice. There's just a lot of problems that happen because there's this bottleneck of everything happening at the same place at the same time. And people have talked about this, about the Ethereum blockchain having this extreme bloat, this extreme size, because all these messages are all happening at the same place at the same time, that there needs to be a better way. And so the way in which it sounds is that they want to switch from, instead of having all the transactions on the main Ethereum blockchain, switching them over to a model where users can privately exchange messages that would be not necessarily on that chain. So what do we have here? So we have the Lightning Network, instant contracts and payments. Then we have Plasma for ledger and compute scaling. And then we have the blockchain, the Ethereum mainnet. And so Plasma is a series of contracts which runs on top of a root blockchain, the mainnet Ethereum blockchain. So you have the mainnet Ethereum blockchain. Plasma will run on top of that as a series of contracts. Yes. So in the event, and so it does note here, in the event of an attack, participants can rapidly and cheaply do a mass exit from the chain cloud to a root chain if that from a child chain to a root chain if that child chain is compromised. So there's a lot of other detail in here talking about the hierarchical nature and whatnot. But each child blockchain can have its own token, just like a cryptocurrency reward paid to a miner. And this is to incentivize the validations and the validators of the chain to keep it running and keep it protected from faulty states that are checked by fraud proofs. So then there's additional graphs and examples in here talking about how Alice is popping in 1 ETH into this Plasma blockchain and just how there's different routes to get around to different depths inside this blockchain to get into the Ethereum root chain. Excellent. And then turning over to this CoinDesk article, about this Plasma scaling plan. Again, Ethereum has this problem where it has so many users, it can't support all the users that it has right now for all the people who want to use Ethereum. And so these capacity issues include rising smart contract fees and occasionally the bog down of transaction times. And so Buterin, the creator of Ethereum, and Poon, the co-author of the Lightning Network white paper, are both developing this plan for this Plasma network. Let me see here. That's not to say hyper-open solutions, sharding, Radian Network, TrueBit have all emerged as innovative ways to ensure a future of decentralized applications run as easily as centralized ones that we use today. But a new solution called Plasma has been unveiled on Wednesday. It is emerging as perhaps the project to watch. And so again, these are just other competing ones. We are going to be talking about the Microsoft Coco, and right now we're talking about Plasma. And there's just these other solutions that are just competing for what is going to be the solution that the developers are going to want, the network effect, the mass adoption, so that protocol is the protocol that most companies, most organizations, most people are using when they do want to create these side chains for their communities, for their businesses, for their organizations, to have a side chain on top of a main chain to have their own little microverse that's connected to the macroverse of the actual Ethereum network. So there's this one quote that people say you can't run everything in the world on a blockchain, but I really, really think it is possible. And so this is their way of making it possible. Instead of having this problem where they don't have the scalability of having everything run on the main chain, they want to create these baby blockchains. They want to create these sub-chains. They want to create these side chains. And that's what's going on. That's what's going on with Plasma. And so Plasma has, of course, some very, very big names behind it. And that's definitely going to help Plasma in helping Plasma move forward. So on the other side of there, we have Microsoft, and Microsoft is a $561 billion company, and they are a part of the Ethereum consortium, and just helping to increase the blockchain adoption and the synergy of these different companies using it to have some sort of standardized protocol to where these different companies can be on the same page. They can communicate, they can share information, they can share in the efficiencies, and they can share in the total overall ecosystem of the not just the main protocol that's been developed, Ethereum, but these additional protocols that are going to be connected all together in this massive interconnected ecosystem. So Coco presents an alternative approach to ledger construction, giving enterprises the scalability, distributed governance, and enhanced confidentiality they need without sacrificing the inherent security and immutability that they expect. So it leverages local hardware-based environments such as Intel's trusted execution environments. Those are TEEs. To facilitate the settlement information in an off-chain blockchain ecosystem. So by processing this data in a separate ecosystem, it's allowing Microsoft to produce a more functional, more flexible infrastructure for decentralized applications. So these are decentralized applications that are using blockchain technology. These are decentralized applications that are connected to Ethereum, and these are decentralized applications that would be using the Coco protocol. So the Coco framework, let's see here. So Ethereum needs an off-chain infrastructure like the Coco framework if it aims to enable commercial organizations to process large amounts of information, because we need these sub-areas to process these individualized sections of information to then come back into the main chain so that everything can be processed theoretically on the Ethereum blockchain. So off-chain scaling solutions. Ethereum needs off-chain scaling solutions and improvement by 100-fold in terms of scalability in order to efficiently power decentralized applications. And so there's this quote here that these These are hard computer science and game theory problems, most of which have never been solved before. Estimating completion can be hard and be far off, and large apps can't run solely on-chain and likely never will. They need off-chain scaling solutions. And so, and then it goes on to say that conceivably, we could see a 100x improvement by the end of 2018, which would allow for a 1 to 10 million user app. So it sort of made me a little bit giddy to think about this, that by the end of 2018 that there is going to be a user app that is going to be able to support as many as 10 million people would just provide an incredible case study to show the potential of Ethereum to really work for these major corporations that are dealing with an advanced internet and are trying to make sense of blockchain technology specifically. And then last part on this article here, organizations within the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance will further enhance Ethereum scalability by leveraging off-chain solutions. And Microsoft is a part of that alliance that's helping these companies scale with these solutions, that are helping them come together with these solutions. And Microsoft leading the way with a solution which is potentially in direct conflict with Vitalik's solution of Plasma. And so last but not least, just taking a look at this article to see what additional information that we can glean here. Not stated in the previous article is that Coco apparently is going to be completely open source, which is, I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing for it to be open source so everyone can understand what is the code is, what is the code that is there, and there's just that transparency so that a developer can understand how it's working and can relay that trust and that assurance, not just with the general public, but with the other companies in the world that then want to connect with that technology. Either connect directly with that technology with another company, or to take that technology and for them to use it in maybe even more interesting ways. So this open source system is designed to provide a high scale and confidential blockchain network for enterprise purposes. The main objective of the initiative is to boost global adoption of blockchain technology among companies and corporations. Coco wants to slowly steer enterprises in one direction to ensure a unified approach to distributed ledgers. So that's sort of an important point, is that although this is an open source technology, that this is not a decentralized solution in this regard, as participants will be able to exert a high degree of control over the users inside these particular blockchains. I would imagine that for a large degree this is probably going to be true for the additional protocols that are being developed, that'd be Plasma or Lightning or Radiant or whatnot, but it's directly stated here in this article in the Merkle that that the Coco is not going to be a decentralized solution, and it's really more of a distributed ledger orientated approach rather than a decentralized technology proper. So that's interesting in terms of its goal of increasing mass adoption. It's interesting in terms of creating highly scalable and confidential blockchain networks and solutions for enterprise companies. But it's and that's going to help everyone overall. But it's definitely a little bit less interesting that it's a decentralized solution, and that different people, when they go off the Ethereum blockchain into one of these particular subchains using Coco, then it just does add a certain amount of risk, and then does heighten the level of trust that a user needs to have in order to interface with that organization. Because, part of the reason Ethereum and Bitcoin is new and interesting and cool is because it's decentralized peer-to-peer trust. Well, if you start entering a network in a room where there is a third party that you have to trust now all of a sudden, then that can be a little worrisome. So far, with this framework, existing work that's been done, Microsoft has been working hard to make this project work from day one. And so far, Ethereum has been integrated with blockstream-oriented projects such as R3, Intel, JP Morgan Chase, more coming in the future. Coco was designed in such a way that it can operate in a cloud or on a premise alike. So it can operate on a macro, global level, but it can also operate on a local level as well. And that can be really, really exciting for corporations and enterprise companies, even though it seems kind of lame to someone who knows how lame an intranet is. But even though intranets aren't very cool, the fact that this technology is going to be giving CEOs and organizations these options is definitely going to give it a competitive edge. And as this article states, the flexibility could be a driving factor, leading more enterprises to actually adopt the blockchain technology for in different ways for their business models. And so finally, this universal framework is capable of linking existing blockchains in one convenient solution. And this is going to have some interesting ramifications. This is going to have some very, very interesting ramifications indeed, because we understand from this article that it's going to be Microsoft's goal slowly to get everyone to really shift to using this protocol when they want to create subchains or side chains or sub networks inside blockchain technology utilizing the Ethereum technology. And so Microsoft wants this to be number one. They want this to have the network effect. They want this to be the technology that all other technologies eventually end up integrating with. And there could be pros to that. There could be cons to that. Everything can be a tool for good or a tool for evil. And it's definitely important that all of us understand what the ramifications are for the good aspects of this and the risky aspects of this, and just understand these as we interface with these in the future, as these are developing in the future, as these are getting more sophisticated in the future, because this is happening very, very fast, very, very quickly. And it could be that as quickly as in 3 years or 5 years or just a few years into the development of some of these technologies, they could be so seamless that we will have no idea that they are there. There will be no understanding of the layers of technology that are operating the infrastructure of the future, that are going to be operating our lives, not just in the financial world and the technological world, but if this is going in the way of where the ICOs want us to go, this is going to be affecting every single thing and every single aspect of our lives. And these interfaces are going to be everywhere. It's definitely new. It's definitely exciting. It's definitely futuristic. And you are here with me. You are a part of the future. And these are very, very exciting times. So, wow, that was a lot of information. So what do you think about all that? What do you think about these subchains or these side chains of Ethereum? What do you think about these protocols being open source and the fact that anyone can look at this code and then have trust in the code? But at the same time, what do you think about these protocols being more centralized and allowing the person who is deploying that subnet inside Ethereum to sort of have ultimate control, or even that set of users of that subnet to have ultimate control over what's happening and what's going on? There's definitely positive reasons how that can be a true value. And then on a grander scale, there's definitely ways where that ability could be misused by the wrong people in charge. So it'll be really interesting to see how those sort of concerns are answered as this technology is further developed. Or maybe they won't care because Coco is developed for enterprise corporations anyways, and that's exactly what they want. So I'd love to know what you think. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Check out our show notes. Follow us on Steemit. Please make an account on Steemit if you haven't already. It's definitely very, very interesting. And let me know, what do you think about taking a $10 Bitcoin wallet with $10 of today's Bitcoin, or maybe 0.001 Bitcoin, and burying that in your wall of your house, or hiding that somewhere in your house for a future person to find? Do you think that's interesting, or would you not do that, or would you just have to go back to that house 20 years later and find that Bitcoin wallet yourself? Just fun questions. Feel free to throw anything in the comments below. I love engaging and seeing what you have to say and what's going on. But until then, we have more videos on the way. We have more news to talk about. There's just so much happening. You guys know there's a lot going on. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't. We'll be talking again soon. In the meantime, I'm glad that we're minting coins.